Hello and welcome to another breakout session. This is breakout session number 64. Today we're going to talk about octave shapes and the caged system and the relationship between the two. But before I get started, I want to say hi to all the Guitar League members around the country. And as usual, I ask you or anybody that's watching, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do. Hit the little bell and a like button if you like it. Okay, it all helps. I'm trying to build up my subscription base. Okay, so today, on a weekly basis, I think, I bug you guys about learning all the notes on the fretboard, and I know you roll your eyes when you hear it. But I'm going to give you today a little start to that, a little beginning of how to learn that. So I'm going to show you some octave shapes on the fretboard today and the relationship between that shape and the caged chord that's underneath it. Okay? So, when I started, like a lot of people 100 years ago, they just had you, count your way up, say the E string and the A string, count up to where you wanted to go, or learn all those notes. But the problem with that is you'd find yourself counting when you were trying to get somewhere. You can't do that and play a song and stay on time. It's impossible. So you need to internalize where these notes are and also have quick references on how to find them. So today's episode is just a little starter kit on how to do that. Okay? So let's start the old-fashioned way. Let's count up each string and let's find the C note on each string. So we're going to start with the big fat E string. Oh, before I get started, I just wanted to show you the guitar I'm playing today. This is the 35th anniversary Paul Reed Smith guitar. It would now be its 40th anniversary because they came out in 1985. Okay, so this is a beautiful guitar, mahogany, solid mahogany neck, body. It's got a maple cap on it, flame maple. It's awesome. I put locking tuners on it. It's got the Paul pickups on it with splits on the pickups, coil splits. So has a million sounds. I'm playing it today through a Paul Reed Smith Custom 50 hand-wound amp, going through the Mesa Boogie cabinet with a Mesa Boogie Black Shadow 12-inch speaker. This is my cheap version of a Dumble setup, okay? But it's pretty nice. Okay, so let's find the C's on all the strings. So let's count up the big fat E. So you got E, F. So, quick note. There's no space or fret between an E and an F and a B and a C, so that helps you count up, okay? So E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A, B flat, B, C. So the C on that big fat E string is on the 8th fret. Okay, now let's find it on the A string. So we got an A, a B flat, a B, and there's no fret between it, so there's one fret, B, C. So the C is on the 3rd fret of the A string. Now let's find it on the D string. Now here we're going to have to count away because you just went past C when you come to D. So it's going to be D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, A, G sharp, A, B flat, B, C. So the C on the D string is on the 10th fret. Okay, now let's find it on the G string. Okay, you got a G sharp, an A, a B flat, a B, and a C. So that is on the 5th fret of the G string. Now the B string is pretty easy because it's B, C. Again, no space or no fret, so B, C, or 1 fret. No big space. Okay? And then the on the bottom, the high E, the thin one, we already know the C is on the 8th fret because E is the same as the other E, okay? They're both E's. Okay, so now let's learn some of the shapes. And all the materials for today's lesson are going to be down in the description, and you can print them out. You don't have to go to a website, just print them out from there, and I probably recommend you do that pretty quickly, okay? So, we're going to go to the A string, and we're going to put to the 3rd fret, and we're going to put our ring finger on there. Then we're going to get down to the B string, and we're going to play the C on the B string. So now we got 2 C's. And an octave is the same note 8 tones higher or lower depending on which way you're going, okay? 8 tones different. So those are C's. And that puts you right in the shape of the C chord from the cage system. Okay? Caged. C-A-G-E-D. Caged. Okay? So that puts you right in the C shape. So if we now move up to the A string 3rd fret with our index finger, and we go down 2 strings, and we go over 2 frets and put a finger. So now we've got 2 C's, and that puts us right in the A-shaped C chord. So if we took an A chord and we moved it up to there, it would be a C. So that shape, that octave, puts us right into that shape. Now if we go down to the G string, where that C was, and go down 2 strings and over 3 frets, there's a C there and a C there, and then that puts us in what we call the G shape C. That's the bottom half of a G. Nobody ever plays really the whole thing. It's just too hard to reach it. But that's the shape. So that A shape, that triad on A shares the A and the G. Now the G shape one, if you took it from the top or the bottom, that's going to put you in the E-shaped C. And the way I find that octave is I go to the 8th fret, big fat E. I go down 2 strings and over 2 frets. And those are C's. That's an octave. That is a C octave right there. And that puts us in that E-shaped C. So now if we come over to the C on the D string, and we go down 2 strings and over 3 frets, we find another D. Another C. So we got a C on the D string and a C on the B string. And that technically is putting us in the D-shaped C. So there's a C-shaped C, an A-shaped C, a G-shaped C, an E-shaped C, and a D-shaped C. And that order does not change, okay? It depends on where you start. So now you've learned 2 things. You've learned where all the C's are on the fretboard, and you've learned where they are in relation to the cage shape. Underneath those shapes is everything you want to know. That's a more advanced thing. I've done videos on these, and I'm going to link some to it. Where underneath that shape are all the chord tones. Basically, all the scales are there, the modes are there. They're all under each individual shape. Okay? More advanced. Okay. So moving right along. Now that we know where the C's are, let's go back to that original C shape octave. So we're on the A string 3rd fret and the B string 1st fret. Let's move that up a whole step. Now we're on D. Okay, that's a D note and a D note. It's a D octave, which puts us in what we call a C-shaped D chord. Okay, that's a D chord with a C shape. So if we had a D chord and then we just kept going with that same chord, we'd then have a C-shaped D chord. So then if we take and we move our finger to the 5th fret on the 5th string, move our index finger there, go down 2 strings and go over 2 frets. That's a D and a D. That puts us in that A-shaped D. So then if we came over to this D on the 7th fret, put our index on it, went down 2 strings and went over 3 frets, that puts us in the G-shaped D. So now if we came back over to the 8th fret, now we got the 8th, 9th, 10th fret, there's a D. We're going to put the D, our index finger on the D note on the E string, 10th fret, and we're going to put our pinky, we're going to go down 2 strings and over 2 frets, and those are both D's, and that puts us into that E-shaped D, and following the E-shaped D, we're going to find the D-shaped D. It just repeats itself. So if we started on the D instead of the C, so it would be D, and now we're going to start C, A, G, E, D. It just continues on. So that's how that works. So now you've learned where all the C's notes are on each string. You've learned where all the D notes are on each string. You've learned the cage shapes that go underneath that octave shape. And all the scales, modes, and everything lie under those. More advanced course. Now the next step, so I would do that, okay? I would practice that, and you can start with an E. And what's going to follow an E? A D-shaped E. And what's going to follow a D-shaped E? A C-shaped E. And then there'll be an A-shaped E. And then there'll be a G-shaped E. And then there'll be an E-shaped E. So wherever you start that cage system, the next chord is going to be the same. You know? And I did a video on that. It's called Ed Cage, and it really shows you how that works and how you can move those chord shapes all the way up the neck and down. Okay, so the next step I would do you need to internalize where all these notes are. Then you don't need to think about it anymore. You'll just know where they are. You want to be able to find, let's say, like the F sharp note on the B string and be able to go right there without counting all the way up to F sharp on the B string. Okay, so you need to internalize it, memorize it, and then internalize it, and then you're going to, you won't even be thinking about it. And then you're also going to learn all the notes of that number depending on the scale. But that's, again, more advanced. But start here, please. If you learn the notes on the fretboard, I guarantee you that your guitar playing is going to improve by a year. You're going to jump a year ahead of where you are right now once you get this down. So the next thing you could do, besides doing the octave shapes that we talked about, is just pick like a note, like let's say a C note, and play all the C's. Play all the C's on the fretboard, so you can find them on each string. Just boom, all the C's are boom. They're right here. Okay, then so maybe go down with the C's, where all the C's are, and then come back up with maybe all the D's. Like that. So only do it faster. I'm thinking about a lot of things at the same time. Plus, this is a 24 fret guitar, so everything looks a little different on it. Okay, so that's all I wanted to do today. This is a real quickie. So you've learned the octave shapes on the neck fretboard, and you learn what chord you're going to find underneath that octave shape. So that's a lot for one day. So practice that, please. Please learn. You do the printouts, and there's a on the printout there is a let me kill this phone real quick. There's a printout in the description of all the notes on the fretboard, and there should be one there for the octave shapes too. So, good luck with this. Everybody stay safe out there, and we'll see you in the next video.